Hello, my brother. Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode is designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. Let's have a little conversation today about 3 signs that your mind might just be too damn loud. And I'll tell you what that means and why you should care and the impact that has on your life in a few moments. But I want to give you the context, the story from this morning that prompted this conversation, why I believe it's so important. So this morning, I found myself doing something for the first time that I never wanted to do. In fact, I'd been outright resistant to it for the past number of months. And what this was I did my very first Instagram live workout. Now, I wasn't the one leading the workout. I was actually taking someone else's class. So I was taking the class of Chloe Corpus, who is a fitness instructor here in New York City. I took her classes at the Equinox when we were pre-quarantine era. And I think so highly of her that I've hired her 2 different times to run virtual workouts for the Great Man Mastermind over Zoom. And she's fantastic. The guys love her. Now, I've been taking her classes in person and then hiring her from a mastermind for over a year now. And I've always really enjoyed her instruction. She's been different than anyone whose class I've taken before. I can't tell you I couldn't for a long time put my finger on why or what she brought that was so different until I found myself this morning doing something I never wanted to do and enjoying the workout thoroughly, where I started to recognize what her gift and her genius was or is. And by the way, her name is Chloe, and the last name is spelled C-O-R-P-U-Z, Chloe Corpus. You can find her on Instagram that way. I encourage you to follow her because I think she does 3 days a week live workouts. The thing that I found that I appreciate so much about her is that she gives you an ass-kicking workout that is super efficient, and a lot of fitness instructors do this too, but she doesn't scream or yell at you to get your attention, and she places a particular emphasis on the warm-up, the movement, the balance, and the recovery afterwards. So when I finish working out with her, I feel tired, exhausted, not exhausted. I feel tired, like I got a great workout, and I feel proud of myself. But I don't feel physically beaten into the ground like many of the workout classes that I found myself taking for years throughout my 30s. And it brings me to the first sign of 3 different signs that your mind may be too loud, which is, number 1, you need people to yell and scream at you in order to hear over the voice of your own mind. Now, I think about some of the classes that I've taken here in New York City that are popping up everywhere, these boutique fitness classes like SoulCycle, Barry's Boot Camp, Rumble, which is the big boxing one here. I've never taken SoulCycle. I have a bony ass. I hate riding bikes. Well, not I hate riding bikes. I hate taking spin classes like that. So I've never taken a SoulCycle class. But Barry's Boot Camp, Rumble, I believe SoulCycle all follow the same formula, which is deafening music and then someone screaming at you over that deafening music. I only went to Barry's Boot Camp once, but it was you were in the basement of the largest underground club in New York City, and that level of deafening music, and then the instructor screaming at you over it. And the same thing at Rumble. And I happen to like Rumble. I think their classes are awesome. Boxing classes, you get on a big punching bag and then one of those smaller speed bags. But super fucking loud music and then a louder instructor screaming on top of it. And what I noticed, because I do a lot of stillness practice, I do a lot of meditation and quiet time. What I noticed happening is because this stuff was so loud, there was nothing else going on in my mind, but it was it felt like it was exhausting me. It felt like it was penetrating me, in not the most pleasant of ways. And I remember for years in my 30s that the fitness classes that I chose someone who would yell and scream at me, boot camp me, beat the shit out of me, because that seemed to be my only path towards what I believe to be a good workout. And I think it's because my mind was so loud that when I was doing a workout on my own, that was too hard, or I was approaching a point of pain, my mind would be like, stop, get out of here. And I need someone else to call me a pussy for me to actually like go past that, which is not typically, I guess it's not the way that I train anymore. Like I don't respond to someone to someone screaming at me. I don't respond to someone questioning my manhood. Like these are things that no longer motivate me or inspire me. They actually do the opposite. They gut me. So if you need someone to yell at you, to motivate you in the gym, to motivate you to be a better husband, to be a better boyfriend, if you need someone to yell at you to get your attention on something, then chances are like your mind is so fucking noisy that these other messages can't get in. And so we'll talk about in a few minutes like what we need to do in order to quiet our mind. The second sign that your mind is just too damn loud is that you gravitate towards extremes versus the subtleties. You go for extremes, you respond to extremes and have a hard time detecting the subtleties. So an example from my own life, I remember there was a period of time, I think it was 20s through my early 30s, where like I loved horror movies, slasher movies. The gorier, the better. You know, like Saw. We're talking about that kind of stuff, like grotesque. And the reason for that, as I look back at it, is I was so numbed out and disconnected from my emotions that like I needed that level of gore to penetrate and cut through, to reach me on some level where I could feel that, like that sense of aliveness, because the subtleties just seem to, pass me by. I've spoken many times on this show that like my favorite show of all time is Breaking Bad. I'm now going through my fourth time watching the entire season, like start to finish. And you would think I'm embarrassed by that. I'm proud of it. There's no shame whatsoever because the show is so fucking fantastic. And I started watching that show probably 7 years ago when I was a different man, right? When I didn't have the kind of awareness of my own feelings and emotions. I wasn't as open. I wasn't deep into my stillness practice. And what I loved about Breaking Bad back then were like the violent scenes, the gory scenes, like the crazy parts. And of course, I still love that now. But as I'm watching the show for the fourth time through, the subtleties of Breaking Bad, the storytelling, the slower parts, which are set up for contrast for some of these more like extreme parts so that you can feel the tension at a deeper level, how they seduce the listener or the viewer by revealing only small parts of the story where you're like, what's going on next? What's going on next? How they tantalize the viewer. The subtleties of Breaking Bad are what make that show exceptional. I couldn't see them 7 years ago when my mind was so loud that I needed something so extreme to drown it out or to shut it up for a half a second. So I find that many of the men who have done the inner work, who have quieted their minds, can recognize and play with subtlety. And subtlety is where meticulous leadership comes from. Subtlety and nuance is what your romantic partner wants from you. She or he wants to feel like that part of you that can see deeply inside of them, the parts of them that no one else can see. That comes from subtlety, not extreme. Everyone else can see the extremes. Can you see beyond that? And the third sign that your mind is just too damn loud is where shit has to break before you pay attention to it, right? Shit has to break before you pay attention to it. When your mind is so loud, you're consumed with what's going on in your mind, and you're not paying attention to maybe the relationships around you, to your business, or to what's even going on inside of your body. So a few examples of this. One of my favorite movies, White Men Can't Jump, Woody Harrelson, Rosie Perez. If you've been a long-time listener of the show, you will know that my very first ever sexual experience happened by watching White Men Can't Jump and the naked scene with Rosie Perez. She has no idea that she played such a pivotal role in my sexual becoming, or coming into, or I guess there's a lot of puns that are happening right now. All right, let's get the story back on track. Spoiler alert, I'm about to reveal like one of the end scenes of White Man Can't Jump. Woody Harrelson and Rosie Perez are in a relationship. Throughout the movie, Woody Harrelson is a hustler, basketball player, and he basically hustles people for money. And he's a bit dense when it comes to his relationship with Rosie. Doesn't know how to read women, definitely doesn't know how to read Rosie. He disappoints her throughout the movie. She gives him a second chance, a third chance, and then an ultimatum, which at the end of the movie is basically like, Billy, you have to stop hustling and gambling and creating like a roller coaster life for us. Otherwise, I'm out of here. And then this opportunity comes to Billy. Billy is Woody Harrelson in the movie. Comes to Woody Harrelson that he just can't pass up. And he goes, oh, Rosie will understand. So he goes to her and says, honey, I got this hustle of the century. It's going to make us rich. And I promise you, I'll come back later. It's a can't miss. And she's like, okay, good luck, Billy. And then she puts on her 1990s headphones and then she rolls off on her rollerblades. And Woody Harrelson is oblivious to the fact that she's gone forever. He's just completely oblivious. And it's only when he returns home later, victorious, that she's gone. And he's shocked because he's so dense. He's so in his own head that he couldn't wake up to the fact that she was slowly having her heart broken and was no longer going to take it, and she left. Something had to break for Woody before he actually paid attention. What about you in your life? Some real easy examples of this are injuries. Whether it's like you constantly hurt yourself because you're overworking or you're not paying attention to where you're going or you're pushing yourself too hard during workouts. This week, it's a neck injury. Next week, it's a back injury. The week after that, it's an ankle or there's a shoulder tweak. If you are constantly injuring yourself, there's something in your mind that is causing you to not pay attention to the subtleties that are going on in your body, to recognize like when you're at your limit, to recognize the difference between pain and injury. If you're constantly injured, your mind is too loud. Insomnia, another great example of like when your mind is too loud. I mean, that's obvious. I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know before. Insomnia, or even something like less dramatic, which might be can't fall asleep, tossing and turning. It takes you 45 minutes to go to bed, or you constantly wake up in the middle of the night with, these thoughts that come to you, right? And not the most, it's not like, euphoric thoughts that come to you, but they're more like panic or fear, or I forgot something. These are all signs that your mind is just too damn loud. And so what I found in my stillness practice, in my mindfulness practice, in my meditation practice, in my yoga practice over the last 7 years, that I started to recognize the subtleties. I started to feel the nuances and the signs in my body when enough was enough. When there was a client that came to me that felt like a really great opportunity to work with versus someone whose money may have looked great, but completely out of alignment with my own integrity and values. These are the subtleties that I've been able to use through a quieting of the mind, to use the mind as one part of a many-part system of making choices and decisions. I've got my emotions, my feelings, my heart. I've got my intuition. I've got other people who I rely upon, right, outside of myself and my mind. And as I've been able to put that more into balance, my life has gotten more exciting, more fulfilling, more peaceful, less stressful, far fewer injuries, and many more restful nights of sleep. So the thing that we have to do about this, in order for our mind to tone down so that we can feel and hear and trust much more deeply what's going on inside of us, is to cultivate a stillness practice, a mindfulness practice. And many of you are already deep meditators already. And for you, who is a deep meditator, I would say, how can you deepen your practice even further? Let's say you've been meditating for 10 minutes a day. Maybe you double that for the next week. Maybe you've already been doing 20 minutes a week. What if you did it 20 minutes a day. What if you did it twice of 20 minutes a day, morning and evening for the next week, maybe for the next month? If you've never stopped and practiced stillness, mindfulness, there's never been more free resources available. You can go on to Simple Habit and listen to my boy, Corey Muscara, who's been a 2-time guest on the show, spent 6 months in silent meditation. You can listen to the Calm app, Headspace, plenty of guided meditations to get you into the practice of sitting down and observing your thoughts. As Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our ability to choose And when we choose, it's the gateway to our growth and our freedom. So in that spirit, I invite you today to practice stillness, to sit down for your first time or your 5,000th time, to settle in and to practice awareness of the thoughts in your mind so that you can bring them and the volume down lower, to see what else is in there inside of you wanting to be heard. A feeling, a fear, a desire, a thought, a longing, or inspiration. So many of these other things are available when we can turn down the volume of our mind. And speaking of which, it's time for me to turn down the volume of my mind. So I'm heading out to a meditation right now. Enjoy yours. Hey, a big shout out to all of you who have left ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts, pointing people to the episodes that you love. If this was one of them, if you have a noisy mind and this was something that was really helpful for you, then would you consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, letting a potential future listener who has the same challenge know that this is an episode that he needs to listen to? Thank you, my brother.